Hey.
Howdy.
Hello.
Welcome to the podcast, Zach. How's it going?
Good, man. How are you?
Good.
Very good. I like that hoodie.
Yeah, that's sick.
Thanks. Yeah. I saw it at just like a normal sports clothing store, and I was like, they had 15 of them because they were like super colorful, and I was like, fuck yeah, I need this.
Hell yes.
I like that.
Pass the Comics and Chronic fit check.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're very fashion forward here.
Yeah.
As I wear my Disney. This is also like a 10-year-old faded Disney hoodie.
Hell yeah. Nice and comfy.
It's super comfy. It's really thin, and if you were here in person, you could see my skin underneath it. That's how faded this is. It's only a matter of time till it falls apart. But
Nice. Well, thanks for coming to the pod. Where are you at right now?
I'm in Prince Edward Island, Canada. So I'm on the east coast of Canada.
Nice.
I'm actually 1 hour ahead of EST. So I'm in a weird time zone where it's 10:15 right now.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was later for you. I apologize.
Oh, it's all good. Yeah. It's a funny, weird thing where it's this island and then Puerto Rico are in this time zone. And then that's it. And my collaborator on Cemetery Kids Don't Die is in Puerto Rico. So it's
Oh, wow.
Daniel is the only other guy that I know in comics who's in this time zone. So it's kind of funny.
that's funny. That's cool. I appreciate it. That's my bad. I'm in LA, so.
Oh, yeah. And don't worry about it. I used to be on the West Coast, so I got the opposite treatment for so long where it was yeah, meet late into the night. It's only 6 p.m. my time. This is great.
Nice. Well, yeah, thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
Really appreciate it.
For our listeners out there, welcome to the podcast. Today we're talking to writer Zac Thompson. Just came out with a book. As of today's recording, it just came out, the first issue of Blow Away from Boom Studios with Nicola Izzo. And recently also from Oni Press, Cemetery Kids Don't Die. You have a lot of books. I know you've written for Marvel and DC as well. Zac Thompson, welcome to the podcast.
Ooh.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming. There's usually 3 of us, but
Yes.
one of our co-hosts could not make it today.
Okay, cool. Well, not cool, but
Yeah, screw
you're
him.
right. It is not cool of him. He sucks. We will ridicule him. So
perfect.
yeah. But you got the 2 ones who matter most. So that's
You lucked out.
Yeah. But yeah, no, cool book. I just read it, the first issue today, and I was telling Anthony, for me, I don't know, have you ever read Whiteout by Greg Rucka?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I mean that as
Nice.
a compliment. It gave me hard Whiteout vibes, and I was like,
Hell yeah. That was a huge inspiration on me early on.
nice.
Honestly, because when you pitch anything to do in the snow in comics and having white gutters and all that stuff, Whiteout does such a good job of playing with that white space, and that was a huge thing that I came to Boom with was hey, I want to do a noir, but I want to use white as the way to sort of make hard directional shifts of light on the page, and I want to play with snow in a way where I was I want whole panels to be obscured by snow. And they're
Nice.
that sounds cool.
Yeah, I really like the way that looked in the comic. I mean, so we got to read the first issue. The first issue's out as of the recording. As this will be out, you'll be able to buy it. You've worked with the Boom Studios before. I think you've done Hunt for the Skinwalker.
Yep.
I feel like both of these stories kind of involve conspiracy theory in a
Yes.
certain way. I was also reading your Substack today, so it was clicking for me.
Hell yeah.
Is that something that you're a fan of, or is it just ripe story material when you're dealing with conspiracy theory?
So, I mean, Skinwalker was interesting in that it was something that was Boom brought to me that I was not super familiar with, to be honest,
Okay.
right at the get-go. And then I started to do some research, and I was oh, this is really interesting. And I'm not even really an aliens guy. I don't think I'm a believer. I like all of the stuff surrounding it. I love all of the stories that people have told over the years, and I find that stuff really fascinating. But it's not something that I myself subscribe to. So when it comes to conspiracy theories, very similarly, I'm sort of approaching it from this outsider's perspective, where I find it all very fascinating. And in particular, I'm really obsessed with there's an old school genre of paranoid thriller that was really popular in the 70s and 80s that like a crime thriller that was basically like, oh, you can't trust the government, you can't trust cops, you can't trust the establishment or what have you. And we're in that era again, but those things are not really they're not everywhere like they were during that time. And I find that really fascinating because I'm kind of like, if there was ever an era to kind of revive the paranoid thriller, it's right now, right? Like, all of our institutions are systematically failing us. Like in terms of like housing and affordability and healthcare and all these other things that were sort of like the premise of us growing up in North America is sort of like kind of crumbling before our eyes. And so I find it really interesting that there's not more like paranoid fiction out there.
That's a great
but
point.
I'm leading a one-man charge to bring it back.
Well, thank you for doing that, because this was an awesome story. So like, can you tell us a little bit more about like, so you're mentioning these like paranoid thriller movies is like, and I've seen you post about it recently, and then in your Substack today, you were talking about the inspiration, like there were specific movies that really led to like how this story is shaped. Can you talk a little bit about that?
For sure, yeah. So like the book itself, before I get too far ahead of myself, is about a wildlife videographer who's stationed in Baffin Island, a very remote area of Canada. She's there to sort of document an endangered species of bird, but then starts to see these climbers that sort of take her interest. She's been there for about 45 days. And so she starts watching these climbers. And at a certain point, there's like a violent dispute between the climbers, and she's too far away to tell whether or not what happens, but it kind of looks like murder. And so the idea behind that was, well, why don't we take something like Rear Window, which is like, that paranoia of what your neighbors are up to, which is very like 1950s.
Yeah.
Right. And then update it for the modern era of like the paranoia of like isolation and when you are completely removed from your neighbors or other people or even like society at large, right? When you're out on Baffin Island. But then also playing around with your like media and how media can be used to sort of like piece together narratives. So like there's two movies that are sort of like the precursors to Blow Away, which are Blow Up, which is about a photographer who is taking photos and then thinks he actually sees a murder in the background of one of his photos. So he like blows it up to find out if that's what he actually saw. And I think that's from the late 1960s. And then in the 1980s, Brian De Palma made a movie called Blow Out about a sound technician who maybe records a murder. And he's like mixing sound, and he sort of hears something that sounds like a tire getting shot out on like a presidential hopeful's car. And so he starts to like dig into the conspiracy behind that. So I thought, okay, cool. Well, how do you do a modern version of that? And I kept thinking like, cameras have progressed so far. So why don't we do something where it's like we're back to a camera, but we don't have any sound, and add in the distance of modern cameras, which is like, you can shoot something from like 50 miles away at this point with a huge lens. What do you do when there's that distance between you and the thing that you filmed? Like and also in the book, like she's watching footage from hours before, right? So like by the time she realizes what happens, she's already hours behind, right? So like there's all these like things that I just wanted to play with that I thought were like really interesting modern ideas to sort of bring to this core concept of like using technology to maybe piece together a larger conspiracy.
Nice.
I really like that. It's super original. I mean, you're taking these classic elements, but like, yeah, it does fit modern society. And then as you were talking about that distance, like her even watching it hours later, that just clicked for me how that's kind of creating even more distance. So
yeah,
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Well, yeah, thanks. Yeah.
When writing this, did you do you know where this is going to go?
Oh, it's done. Yeah, I'm already, I'm finished writing it. I'm a weird type of writer where like I try really hard to actually finish the entire scripting process before the book even comes out, because it can influence you, right? For good or for bad. And sometimes like with a crime book in particular, you kind of need to know where you're going before you even start, because like I usually like figure out, okay, what is the crime? Who did what? And then build backwards from that. So then you can kind of like leave crumbs or push the protagonist in the wrong direction or whatever, but you always kind of know what the like actual objective truth is, and it's like, will you ever get there is sort of the question that the book raises.
Nice.
So how many issues is this series?
It's 5 issues.
5 issues. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, and we just finished issue 3, like, and wrapped it and put the letters on it and everything. So like we're really far ahead. There'll be no delays or anything.
Nice.
That's awesome.
There was a really good quote. I liked. Sorry, I was just reading your newsletter earlier, and I really liked it because I just subscribed to it. And talking about all this, so this is what stood out to me. You said, we're all guilty of making some moral assessment of someone watching us from a distance. It's just that modern technology has increased that distance and empowered that sense of morality to dangerous levels. We all want to exert control on the world, even if that sense of control may lead us to the wrong conclusions. I felt like this story really, I felt that right away, and it makes me excited for where the series is headed.
Yeah, I mean, I think about that a lot. Like there was something, and like kind of like riff on this in the book in another issue, in issue 2, I think, but I'll kind of like spoil a very specific panel, I guess. But there was this woman, Gabby Petito, who like disappeared, I think like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
She was like
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Blonde,
and
her boyfriend ended up murdering her.
Yeah. And she was like a van camper girl, like sort of like had
influencer.
A TikTok. Yeah. But when in the like 48 hours between when they found her and when her boyfriend was missing, people started going through all their videos and dissecting them. And one thing I thought was really funny, and like, look, the guy actually did murder her, but someone took a screenshot of the boyfriend reading Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. And was like, oh, look, he's a murderer, right? Like, this is evidence. The book is called Annihilation. And it's like, if you know anything about that book, like that's not like, you know, that's not a clue at all. But it was treated as this very serious thing. And I think that's a symptom of like true crime brain, right? Like this idea that there's patterns and there's a semblance of like logic to all of this stuff. And like oftentimes in reality, with crimes like that, it's a crime of passion. It's not premeditated. There's just a crazy set of coincidences that come together, and someone, you know, does a reprehensible thing, and then you sort of have to like, there's, you know, they weren't like leaving clues, right? Like I'm going to record myself reading Annihilation, so people know it was me, you know, like. So I find that really fascinating, and I kind of wanted to react to that in a way that I hadn't seen in fiction, just sort of like how I love true crime. I listen to a lot of true crime, but I do find that it does make people make certain conclusions about things and sort of has rewired our brains in a certain way to kind of predict danger and or to ascribe meaning to things that are sort of senseless.
Yeah.
No, I like that. I agree also with that because I feel like sometimes, the true crime thing is honestly dead on. Also, with the Gabby Petito case specifically, not gonna lie, I went hard into trying to solve that shit from the moment I heard about it.
Because it's addictive, right? There's this idea of like voyeurism, right? Where you're kind of like, okay, I'm interested in like, I have all these pieces and maybe there's something to this. And like, I think we're all guilty of it. I've definitely like, I'm only aware of that stuff because I was like, well, this is interesting. And then like, I don't know. It's just like, it sucks you in, right? Can't help but be interested.
To piggyback off your point about like it rewiring our brains and making us pretty much all think that we can solve homicides. During the Gabby Petito thing, this is like a true thing. Dog the Bounty Hunter was one of the few people to get an actual tip as to like where this dude was, to which later they located his remains in that park in Florida.
Wow.
Really? Holy shit.
Yeah, no, seriously. But like it goes like literally people wouldn't even go to the FBI. They went to Dog the Bounty Hunter. Like,
in Dog we trust.
In Dog we trust. You're right. I'm the dog.
Wow.
Dude's a hero. I think that's the only thing that I thought was missing from this issue was a Dog the Bounty Hunter presence.
He shows up. Don't worry.
Yeah, he might be the hunter that they're talking about in the comic. No, I really like this. I'm looking forward to the second issue. Is there anything else you could tell us about the series that wouldn't spoil it?
Yeah, I think it's about, it's about playing things from a distance and also sort of like one thing that I'm really excited about is like that 2-page spread towards the end of issue 1 that you see like the murder footage.
Yeah.
You're going to see that a few more times throughout the series, but Bryn's perception of that footage changes, and you'll have new information every time you see it as well. So I'm very interested in showing people like the same sort of sequence of images, but changing the information you have about those images every time you see them. And so sort of like building on that idea of like a videographer who has to return to their footage and sort of like find the edit, right? Like to kind of go back and be like, okay, what is happening here? What do I see now that I know X clue or whatever? And then also like playing around with who's watching who. Like I love the way that the first issue ends, and that it's like the issue starts and it's about someone watching someone. And then with getting into spoiler territory, the last page is like the person who's been watching other people is now being watched, right?
Yeah.
And so the layers of that come into play, we're having a lot of fun with.
That's cool. I also like it's so specific that you chose like a wildlife photographer to be the protagonist.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching Planet Earth and was watching the behind the scenes stuff, and I was just like watching footage of people who were like, I think they were in the outback and they were setting up like camera traps, and they were just talking about how long they had been out there to get like one specific thing that you see in the episode for like 3 minutes. And I was like, oh man, that's brutal, but it's also a really interesting state of mind, right? That to be in that spot and to sort of like, and I think they're normally in pairs, but I made sure to kind of like remove the pair aspect just because I was like, something about being somewhere by yourself for a month and a half. Like it already does, like you can already imagine what that does to your brain from a starting point, you know?
You said you're in Alberta, Canada?
No, Prince Edward Island.
Okay. Is that like a very rural, rustic place?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's total population of 150,000 people.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So it's really, really small. Lots of farmland, lots of beaches and stuff. Like oftentimes when you go out in nature, you're kind of by yourself.
Oh, wow.
So, which is sick. I grew up here and I actually lived out on the West Coast for like a decade, and then moved back to the island during the pandemic because I was just
where on the West Coast did you live? Was it also Canada or?
Yeah, I was in Vancouver.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, which is awesome. I love the West Coast. The Pacific Northwest is like beautiful, but it's getting tired of the forest fires every summer.
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
No joke.
Yeah.
Seriously, no joke.
Yeah.
I've been to Vancouver once, and I've been to Alaska, and
nice.
Pacific Northwest is beautiful.
It's honestly like it's kind of like rewired my DNA. Like I really, it's just like a really chill area of the country with lots of like hippies and like mysticism and stories of Bigfoot and you know, like old growth forests and old mines and like ghost towns and all kinds of just cool shit, right? So it's just like if you like being outside, the Pacific Northwest just gives and gives and gives and gives.
I agree. 100%.
Do you smoke at all? Do you take edibles or anything like that?
I do, yeah. I mean, it's legal in Canada, so
Nice.
It's pretty like it's crazy. Like since it's become legal, it's like fully regulated. So like you can like get a package of weed and like know what the percentage of THC and CBD in it is, which is like really sick because when it's not legal, you're kind of like at the mercy of someone else, right? It's never quite what it's like, what you think it's going to be. So it's like really interesting being able to like curate your relationship to it. So yeah, like not crazy. There was like years of my life where it was like daily, but not anymore. Sometimes like an evening, have like an edible and then like hang out with some friends, and that's like the perfect speed because then I just sleep like a baby.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
No dreams either. Just like wake up the next day.
That's a weird thing, especially about edibles. Like I love taking them, but I find that I don't dream or don't remember my dreams. I hope that it's I don't remember and that I'm actually not, you know, like it would be bad. I guess it would be terrible for your brain if you weren't dreaming, you know?
It must be not remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. I find that when I take a break from smoking weed, my dreams are like
vivid as fuck.
Vivid and just like, oh my God, like what is going on?
Yeah.
Because I like for actually, like, the reason I started smoking weed when I was like in my early 20s was because I had such trouble sleeping. And then I found that like that actually really helped me sleep and kind of like would like knock me out. And then after like 2 years of just every day going back to like cold turkey, you have like the most insane dreams and don't sleep very well for like the first like month because you're just like, oh my God, like your brain is just like working overtime, you know? So that adjustment was tough.
Yeah.
So the first comic I've read of yours was your Cable series.
Oh, hell yeah.
And I like that a lot. And it immediately made me, so if I read a comic and I'm done with the comic and I'm flipping back to the cover, because I guess for me at least, or I guess even for you, you were a fresher writer. You know, I didn't know of you before that, but after that, I was checking out your stuff constantly. And do you usually have a writing partner, or is that an on again, off again kind of working relationship?
Yeah, so like Lonnie and I early on wrote everything together. We actually kind of like Cable was the only our second comic ever, if you can believe it or not. Wow. Yeah, so we wrote a comic together, and then the editor-in-chief of Marvel read it and then like called us halfway through our first series and was like, "Do you want to come write for the X-Men?" And we were like, we had day jobs, and we're like, "Holy shit!" Yeah. And so, yeah, and so like Lonnie and I have co-written a bunch of stuff together. And then we had been doing that for like almost 5 years. And at a certain point, when you're co-writing everything, you start to go like, I kind of want to do this thing. And the other person doesn't want to do that. They kind of want to do their own thing. And so you kind of get this point where you go, okay, well, we have to kind of like go off and do our own thing to kind of just like explore other ways of telling stories, yada, yada, yada. But we are still working together on a new comic that is slowly coming together, will come out eventually. But yeah, I mean, we're still very close friends. We both lived in Vancouver together for a really long time and lived close to one another. So we used to like, I would like ride my bike to Lonnie's every second day, and like we'd write, and then he would like come down to my place, and we read at my place like one day on, one day off for like 5 years. And then now he lives in Montreal and I live over here. So we're sort of like doing everything via email or video calls and stuff. So yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So, and you have stuff you're working on. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that.
It's fun just because it's just like hanging out with a good friend, right? And like just sort of like shooting the shit, talking story, and then like someone's taking notes while the other person's talking. And we both like will literally work in the same Google document and like both write in the same thing at the same time. And then like someone's like rewriting the other person's writing as like they're writing like a new panel description. It's weird. You kind of get to a place where like after you've worked together for so long, like it's like hive mind style, like Jackson and Colin.
I was just thinking of them. Yeah, like I think of you guys and them as like that like tag team writers that like I found through like Marvel, and that I keep up with all your writing. So good shit, man. Really like your stuff.
Cool, man. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So you also have Cemetery Kids Don't Die from Oni Press that recently came out. I checked out the first issue too. That was really dope. Completely different kind of story than Blow Away.
Yeah.
Totally different. Can you tell us a little about it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So Cemetery Kids is about 4 friends who have a video game console that they play in their sleep. They play like a very immersive online MMORPG that is basically like Elden Ring meets Silent Hill kind of thing. And the whole shtick of it is that you can only play it for 8 hours and you wake up like fully refreshed. But as you learn in the first issue, it doesn't quite work like that. Some things kind of follow you back into the real world. Yeah. And that's with Daniel Irizarry. 2 issues are out. The next issue comes out the 1st of May, so in 2 weeks' time. And yeah, lots of fun and decidedly different on purpose. I kind of wanted to make sure. I've been in a situation before where you release like 2 books that are sort of similar to one another, and then they sort of like their audiences sort of divide, right? Like, you know, everyone's pull lists are like precious things, right? And it's like, if you like crime, you can read Blow Away. If you like horror, you can read Cemetery Kids. And if you like both, cool. But you don't have to like take another crime book off of your pull list to fit the other book that I'm writing in. And like, I wanted to make sure that they're sort of going in different directions. So they're not, they're just for different types of people. Or if you like both, they're for you.
Nice.
You know, I definitely like them both, but I could see them having totally different audiences. What I really liked about it is the video game aspect, and it definitely had like some Nightmare on Elm Street vibes for sure.
Oh yeah.
And that combination is just like, sign me up, you know?
Yeah. And I love stuff with like two worlds, you know, like I'm very into the idea of like, you know, the book takes place in the video game and in the real world, and having like hyper stylized character designs for the video game stuff, and then like pretty like, you know, run of the mill near future sort of stuff for the real world, just because like that's the magic of comics, being able to like switch those worlds with a page turn. Love that stuff.
No, that's cool. Yeah. What did you grow up being a fan of? Like, were you like a superhero kind of guy, this is a two-parter, I guess. Who are you reading now, if you are reading anyone?
Well, I'm weird. Like I read a lot of like Archie stuff from my mom when I was little.
Nice. Yeah.
No, that's not weird at all. We love Archie here.
We did an Archie episode.
Cool. Yeah. And like, so that was like my gateway into comics. But like when I was younger, I kind of had this moment where I was reading like Spawn, and I was like I was a member of the McFarlane Toys collector club and stuff, and like was way into it. And then like kind of dipped off as I hit my teen years. And then like New 52 came out, and I fell right back into comics. I think Saga came out around the same time. So like, I was right back in my comic book store with a pull list with like 20 titles on it, spending like $100 a week on comics, and just being like, you know, out of my student loan money, which was like, you know, but yeah, that. And so like a lot of the guys that I started reading at that point, you know, like Alan Moore, Grant Morrison, Scott Snyder, Jeff Lemire, like that still is this type of stuff that I follow to this day. But even like now, because I'm peers with people, like I love Alex Packnadell. I love his stuff, follow his stuff.
Oh, Red Fork. We did a Red Fork episode. Love that.
Red Fork is great.
Yeah. Dennis Camp, fantastic. 20th Century Men is like one of the best books of the last little while. Yeah, it's just like, and it's cool to just call them friends, you know, like in a weird way, where I'm like reading comics now and I'm like, oh yeah, like this is a guy that I can just like message right now and ask him how he did this cool thing in this book. And like, you know, so yeah. What else is on my desk right now that I've been reading? I just finished Far Sector for the first time.
I don't know what that is.
The Green Lantern book by N.K. Jemisin.
Oh yeah.
What's it called? Fire Sector?
Far Sector.
Far Sector. Nice.
Yeah, a Green Lantern that's like on the furthest reaches of space, out on her own, doing her own thing, and like a planet that's like a fixed setting. You know, you're not like moving around deep space all the time. Really good stuff. And Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, I just read for the first time.
Oh, that was great.
Fucking good.
Oh yeah, I worked with Matt Lopez on Kazar at Marvel, and
that's sick.
Yeah, he's just like one of the best colorists in the business right now. And Bilquis Everly is like, I Helen of Windhorn, I just read the first issue and like, oh, unreal.
Yeah.
Unreal.
I want to read that.
Yeah, it's so great. Crazy.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous looking book.
Yeah. We're also big Tom King fans too. We read Human Target last year, and that was
love that
one.
Probably one of my favorite things I've read in a long time.
A gorgeous looking book.
Yeah. Oh my God. Really fucking cool. That's awesome, man. So you didn't grow up with like would you say Spawn was your kind of like go-to hero growing up reading?
Oh yeah. I think I was just like the perfect age. Like I was probably like 7 when Spawn came out. So I remember like I was into Batman, the animated series, and I loved Batman. But then I see Spawn and I'm like, well, that's just even cooler, you know, like to a 7-year-old. And like, so I had a bunch of action figures. Like I have the first like 25 issues of Spawn and bagged and boarded, like, you know, as part of my collection, that I'm just like, I don't know how I kept them in good condition as a child, but I have them. And, you know, I have like old notebooks where I was like sketching clown when I was like 10, you know, like, and like Violator sketches and stuff. Yeah. So like, that's the stuff that just really, I don't know, it just appealed to me in a big, big way. And I think like, I didn't really understand it at the time, right? But it was just cool that it was like not Spider-Man and not Batman was this other thing, but I didn't realize that it was like a creator-owned comic or anything, or like what Image was at the time, you know? But like, and like random alien back issues from Dark Horse era, like stuff like that, just because it was like immediately like I was aware of what it was, right? Like I was not like going in as a kid and like pulling any books. I was sort of reading hand-me-downs from my older brother, whatever he had that he would give me and let me tear apart, really.
Are you also a screenwriter?
I am, yeah.
Nice. So how does that intersect with comics for you? Like, is it something you've done as you've written comics, or have you always been doing it kind of concurrently?
It's weird. I went to film school, and so like my first comic, The Dregs, was like a screenplay that I wrote in film school. I met Lonnie in film school, and showed him that screenplay and was like, "Hey, like I think we should turn this into a comic." And so we kind of like took the core concept, we broke it down, and we rebuilt it from the ground up into something new together, made it into a comic. But I, well, at film school, like wrote a feature film. We made it at school. It was like the third feature film that my school had made. And then kind of like didn't get a whole lot going after school up until about 2 or 3 years ago. I wrote a screenplay in Canada. We have like, it may sound crazy, but in Canada, they have like public funding for the arts. So you can like apply, to get a budget for a film, which is wild, awesome. Right?
Yeah.
But the federal government will be like, here's $1 million to make a movie. And like, you can do it.
I wish the US would do that.
Wow. Yeah.
It sounds crazy right? In a good way. Yeah. I'd rather have my money spent on that than fucking...
That's a conspiracy. You're lying.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I went through that process. I met a producer out here and put together a team. And like, so we're in the process of like making a movie now that got like nationally recognized based on my screenplay and got like production funding. And then I'm working on something new that I can't talk about a whole lot, but it's like comics is this magical thing where like I can have an idea and like it basically in about a year it can be out, right? Film is like, okay, cool, we've gotten everyone on board. Now we have to apply for funding. That takes a year. It takes a year to write the script. Then it takes another year to get all, the camera people, the sound people, everyone's schedules lined up. And then like, it takes like 3 months to film it and then another year to edit it together into something. So it's like, I'm not used to that like time scale, I'm like, okay, let's go. Like, let's make a thing in a year. So it moves a lot slower, but for good reason. There's a lot more money at play,
That's cool.
Yeah. Damn, it's still blowing my mind that you said that you could just ask like the government for $1 million to make a movie, and they're like, sure, go.
Well, you got to fill out a lot of forms, and you got to answer a lot of questions, and you got to have very comprehensive like budgets. But it's like like for example, every province in Canada has like art grant thing that you can apply for. So just like recently, I put together a grant application to ask for like funding to write a comic based on like a little piece of Canadiana that I had dug up, and they approved it. And so they give you like money to just go write the script, like to independently develop something. And like, you don't even have to show them anything after you're done. You just get the funding because they want artists to like practice their art. And like, I'm in a privileged position now where I've been a writer for about a decade. So it's like, it's obviously easier to be like, hey, we trust you to go do this thing. But it's still really, I just realized it's a very privileged position to be in because a lot of people in a lot of different countries would love the opportunity just to get money from the government to work on their art,
Yeah.
Hell yeah. But you're taking full advantage of that. So that's awesome. Why not?
Truly, it's like a secret code. I talk to other Canadians sometimes and they're like, you can do what? And I'm like, yeah. So like not everyone knows, right? But it's like sometimes as simple as just like filling out a bunch of online forms and then like, getting on a video call and advocating for why you can do the thing that you're asking to do. And then people are like, okay, cool. It's crazy.
Nice. That's awesome.
It should be that simple for everyone, really.
Right?
Gonna check out if I could get my Canadian citizenships.
There you go. Yeah. Legal weed and funding for the arts.
Yeah.
Can't go wrong.
You're now the second Canadian guest we've had on.
No, third. No, he's the third, I think.
Third.
We're
yes.
counting our Canadian guest, I guess.
Yes, we have the Canadian counter is what we call it.
Okay, cool.
Just made that up.
But we had Ben Clarkson and
Matt Bors isn't Canadian actually. He just lives in Canada.
But Ben Clarkson's Canadian, isn't he?
Ben Clarkson does. Yeah, he was telling us that in Montreal the edibles are weird. You can only get like weird stuff like edible broccoli.
Whoa, really? That's interesting.
Yeah, I was like, what? I'm sure it's not like that in your province, I guess.
No, well, the interesting thing about Quebec is that it sort of works with its like own sort of legal code and does everything kind of its own way. So like, for example, in Quebec, it's the only province in Canada where like if you go to a restaurant, you can like bring your own wine and you know, they take it and there's like a corking fee or whatever, but like you can like buy alcohol in gas stations and stuff. You can't do that anywhere else in Canada. Only that province. So they kind of do their own thing. But like, yeah, edibles out here are just like, here's a 10 pack of gummies. Each gummy is like 2 milligrams of THC, and they're like a sour cherry flavor. And it's like you go in and they just have a huge list and you just like pick from it. It's pretty great.
Yeah.
It's crazy to see everyone's legal weed situation.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
He's in LA. He's got it made. I'm in New York. Like it should be. They're working on it.
It's a little janky.
They don't know how to work it yet.
Yeah, when I was in New York for Comic-Con, I messaged like a local and was like, there's weed stores everywhere. Like, should I go in and buy anything? And my buddy was like, do not. Like, if you want something, like, let me do it for you, because he's like, you just don't know what you're getting. Like, if you just walk into a random place and it's like, you know, I'm traveling from Canada, staying in some neighborhood that I like have to memorize how to get to, you know? And so it's like the idea of like getting really high off of weed that you have no idea where it came from and how high you'll get, you know? Yeah, but it's like, that's sort of what it was like in the early days of like legalization in Canada. Like Vancouver was like, it's always been sort of like a weird gray area. Like they had dispensaries even before it was legal where you could like walk in off the street and just buy weed, and they would have like giant tubs that they would just pull out, put on a scale, give it to you. And it was just like, you know, I was like, how is this legal? But you're also, I moved to the city when I was like 21, and I was like, I'm not asking any questions. This is dope. And so like, that was always the thing out there, but it was always the case of like, you had no idea what you were getting. It was just sort of like whatever strain they had that day. And then you always had to pay in cash. And there was like all these like weird, like weed cafes that were not legal either. Like we don't even have them now when weed is legal, but like, back then you could just go into places and they would have like vaporizers, like just on these tables and like cafes, serve coffee, and you could like grind your weed there and put it in the vaporizer and just like drink a coffee and smoke out of a vaporizer at this place. And then they shut them all down as soon as things got legal, which is really funny.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Yeah, very strange, but it had like a very Amsterdam-y quality to everything. And then at a certain point they were even selling mushrooms and stuff, and it was like getting to a point where I think they were like really pushing it, right? And so I think the police were like, you can't sell mushrooms. Like,
yeah. I went to Montreal recently and they did have mushroom dispensaries in some places. I was like, what?
Oh yeah.
There's some states now that sell mushrooms at dispensaries.
Yeah, Canada's definitely taking a very like lax sort of approach to some of that stuff. And like, you know, it's not that, I don't know. I have a very like, alcohol is crazy. I've been blackout drunk before, and like, you know, I've been woken up and been like, I have no idea what happened last night. That said, like, you can definitely do hallucinogenic mushrooms and get to that state too. But I feel like it's definitely like more difficult to do something like that on weed, right? Like weed just makes you sleepy. You want to eat like a bag of chips and go to bed. You know what I mean? Like it's not like going to make you violent or like you know, get into an altercation. So I really do have, you know, I'm like, you know, let people do that in parks and stuff, right? And just like, you know, stop encouraging people to get drunk and like whatever. I don't know.
No, I agree.
No, I
Like
agree.
you could go to any corner store and buy as much beer as you want to literally kill yourself, but it's just like, some states are like, weed, how dare you, go to jail forever.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
it's
there's
just-
literally alcoholism. There's not like a weedism,
Yeah,
It's not a marijuana-ism.
yeah.
It's just called being cool as fuck.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, if you're ever at Comic-Con again and you're looking for some good stuff, hit up the Comics and Chronic boys. We'll probably be there.
Anthony will hook you
I'm a
up.
New Yorker, yeah, so it's
Hell
all
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
We won't lead you astray.
Yeah.
Perfect,
No, me and
perfect.
Jake were actually at Comic. I was there all 4 days. I don't know why I decided to do that. Just as like I got tickets to actually do that. But Jake was there with me the first day, and it's crazy there. I've been to a few
Yeah.
cons, and New York is it's too much.
Yeah, I find like now that I've been living on this island for a bit and like things are pretty chill here, like to go to New York and deal with like just crap, like that much crowds and that many
Yeah.
people, like even the idea of like trying to find a bathroom in the Java Center and you're just like,
Oh, yeah,
my
dude.
God, like
Java Center is huge.
yeah. And I just feel like I'm like, get out of my way. Like, I got to get out of here. Like, cause it just like,
Yeah.
it activates that like claustrophobia.
I
And,
agree. I
like-
mean, I found it very overwhelming when we went.
Yeah. I try to just get in and do the stuff I got to do for the day. And then like,
Get
if people
out.
want to have meetings or whatever, I'm like, I'm at this cafe, like 3 blocks away. And I'm just like
Nice.
chilling outside. Come see me. Because
Because
it's like, it's easier to do that than it is to like try and find someone in the crowd and then like get out. Because if you're talking to anyone, they'll run into someone that they know, or you'll run into someone that you know. And then like you stop 10 or 15 times, right? As soon as you remove yourself from that environment, you're good.
Yeah.
You really are about isolation, I see.
Yeah.
You said a sentence before that was so awesome. You said, "I'm living on the island. I'm chilling." Like not many people could just say that either.
Honestly, man, like it my wife and I sometimes joke that we sort of like opted out of like normal life because we sort of like during the pandemic, like we lived in a big city and things were like really uncertain, and we're just sort of in an apartment and just kind of were like, let's get the fuck out of here. And so, island is small and I have like family and friends here, and things kind of, there's downsides to like, being in a small place where you don't get all these like wide release movies sometimes, or you don't get to like have all these different restaurants. And so like you can kind of get into the rhythm of like just doing the same thing all the time.
Yeah.
But there is the element of like, there's a beach 15 minutes in every direction from where I live. You can't beat that. There's always like good like seafood all year round, and like it's sunny and sort of like a tropical vibe during the summer. And like, you can't really beat like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna like stop writing today a little early and I'm gonna bike to the beach, go for a swim.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty sick.
I like that, honestly.
I think this whole episode has convinced me I'm moving there. So
Nice.
No, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, yeah, we seriously enjoyed this comic. Like, I genuinely want to keep up with it.
Hell yeah.
So, thank you for coming on. Thank you for making this.
Yeah, thank you for having me, guys. This was great.
before
yeah.
before you head out, is there any other books that you wanted people to know about besides Blow Away, Cemetery Kids
Yeah.
Don't Die?
Yeah, I've got a new book coming out in June called Into the Unbeing.
Ooh.
Big cosmic horror with Hayden Sherman, who is inking and coloring the whole thing. Comes out through Dark Horse. It's going to be 8 oversized issues separated into 2 parts. So part 1, 4 issues, June through October. And then we're going to take about a 3-month break and then come back for part 2, another 4 issues. Best way to describe it is like kind of like H.P. Lovecraft at the Mountains of Madness, rift through climate change. So if you like Annihilation, bring that back from earlier. Then I think you'll dig this. It follows 4 climate scientists who are working in the Australian outback, who sort of identify a strange like landform that's appeared in the middle of the desert. And so they decide to investigate, and they get stuck in it and have to find their way out.
Oh, fuck
That's
yeah.
cool. I like it.
Yeah.
Come back
That'd
and
be
talk
fun.
about that too
Yeah.
when that
Hell
comes
yeah.
out. That sounds
Yeah.
so amazing.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I've got the issues already done, so I can send them your guys' way, and we can get something on the books. Because it's going to be fun. It's definitely again, like keeping with what I was talking about earlier. Like it's designed to sort of start the moment Cemetery Kids ends, and that like you liked this horror book. Well, there's another horror book here for you. It's like that you can just add to your pull list after this one ends, and like. Spoilers, but there's another crime book coming towards the end of the year that starts the month after Blow Away ends. So you got a plan.
Nice.
Okay, yeah, fuck yeah.
That's cool. Very cool.
You're doing a lot of work. That's so cool to hear.
It's cool that you got all these projects going.
Yeah, I'm trying to I spent a long time last year trying to plan this all out so it would all kind of line up, and I had to talk to all these different publishers and be like, hey, I want to do this crazy thing where as soon as this book ends, this one starts. But they were cool about it because they helped. That also helps them not step on each other's toes, right? And not take away from different audiences. So they all played very nicely with one another.
Yeah. Sounds like it's going to work out. That's so awesome. So smart.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Nice. Well, Zach, thank you so much for coming to Comics and Chronic.
Seriously.
You're welcome back anytime.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
No problem, man.
Alrighty.
Talk to you next time.
Cool.
Goodbyes are always awkward, but peace out.
Later, guys.
Later,
Take
man.
it easy.
Hi, you're listening to Comics and Chronic, and I'm Jake FH.
I'm Cody Cannon.
And I'm Anthony Iannaccio.
And you can tune in every Thursday to hear new episodes of Comics and Chronic.
And make sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Comics and Chronic. That's Comics, the letter N, Chronic.
We'll see you guys next week.
Woo!
Peace.